want to thank the World Igbo Congress, the Board of Directors, for asking me to deliver this speech. I consider it an honor. It's not for want of who would have done it, but they decided that I should come and prepare a speech and deliver. So I thank them for that opportunity. I also want to honor the people that have come from various parts of the world to be in this place today for the good and the progress of Igbos at home and around the world, and for the good of the country where we belong, Nigeria. I also want to honor those who are present but not physically here, His Excellencies, their entourage, and anybody that is in this place for the purpose of what we are here today. And I thank God that has made us to arrive here safely, and who will ensure that we also depart and arrive at our destination safely. When I was told that I have to make this address on the way forward for Igbo, I had to quickly do some research and come up with things that I believe I already know about our people, and try to make this address. So it's not a panacea, it's not a total solution, it's my own contribution to what I think we should be doing. So, Igbo, way forward. I will, for the most part, stick to my address, but I might just make a few digressions to incorporate things that I think will be very important. The theme is harnessing Igbo greatness for our own advancement and the good of Nigeria. I hope everybody has a copy. Igbo greatness. The Igbos are a great people. Their greatness is as obvious as standing before the Sears building in Chicago or the SY Twin Towers in New York and saying they are tall. The Igbos are not only great, but their greatness and their achievements rub off positively on the rest of Africa. The question is greatness of any value if it is not harnessed and exploited for the good and advancement of the people and their surroundings? I'll digress a bit. Greatness is like a seed. And from the little biology we did in high school, we know a seed can be made to grow into a great tree. And that tree will produce fruits and more seeds. But we also know that a seed can lie dormant for years and decades. Depends on what you do with the seed. In 1968, one of the mercenaries fighting for Biafra was Lieutenant Colonel Taffy Williams, a South African white male brought up under apartheid with no respect for any black man. He confessed that before he met the Igbos, he had nothing but disdain for Africans. He said that when he fought in the Congo, quote, "I had nothing but contempt for the Congolese, and that went for the Katangese too." But in an interview in September 1968 with a New York Times correspondent, his name is Lord Garrison, Colonel Williams described the impact and change of opinion the Igbos have made on him. Asked why he was risking his life for the Igbos as a mercenary, he said, "These people are intelligent, they are inventive. They have made their own landmines, their own rockets, and they work bloody well." This was unquote. Then Colonel Williams continued. He put a question back to the correspondent. "Can you name me any other black Africans who could fight a war for more than a year and still keep things going without a single bloody white man to advise them?" These are his quotes. Their engineers have built their own airfields. Their trains still run. Radio and television work. So does the phone system. They even have their own telex link to Europe. They refine their own crude oil. All this, and not a single white man in sight, except missionaries. I can tell you, for one who has lived the last 16 years under apartheid, it's been a shock. And I referenced to New York Times Magazine, September 8 of 1968, pages 98 and 99. A mercenary that had no respect for Africans, nothing but disdain for Africans until he met the Igbos. He said the impact was a shock. So what he was told during his apartheid upbringing, he found out that that generalization was a fallacy. Now, the shock expressed both by Colonel Williams and his change of negative opinion regarding Africans in general are not new or isolated for anyone who has dealt with the Igbos. Whether one is a student of Joseph Conrad, the author of The Heart of Darkness, or a product of apartheid upbringing, contact with the Igbos usually leaves unmistakable and lasting impressions. They may have a few negative things to say about us, but the positive, vibrant, and dynamic impression of the Igbos are usually unforgettable. It is evident that the things that don't work in Nigeria today, such as the railways and the refineries, despite the expenditure of billions of naira, worked pretty well in Biafra till the end of the war, notwithstanding blockade, starvation, and general deprivations of the war. Also, beyond the greatness of the Igbos as a collective people is also their greatness as individuals. Chinua Achebe, an Igbo of modest Anglican upbringing, has risen to be a living legend and a literally head and shoulder above all icon, whose literary aftershocks have touched both the heights of the skies and the floors of the oceans. Others such as Philip Emeagwali, Bart Nnaji, and late Chikobi graced the fields of computers, robotics, engineering, and mathematics. It is noteworthy that the late Professor Chikobi, while in his 80s and without the aid of a computer, solved the 500-year-old mathematical problems in Fermat theory. But greatness, unapplied to the needs and future of a people, is as good as nothing. In the New Testament book of Luke, Jesus told his disciples that they are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, it is good for nothing, but to be trodden under the foot of men. in Matthew 5, verses 13 to 14. Also, an unharnessed greatness can be likened to a good soccer team that has good strikers and good dribblers and is able to control the midfield but is unable to put a goal through the net. I happen to have played soccer in my elementary and high school, so it's something I'm familiar with. Sooner or later, that team will cease to be a part of the competition. It doesn't matter how good a soccer team you are. If you can't put a goal through the net, your goodness as a team is nullity. Similarly, Igbos are great collectively and individually, but if our greatness and achievements are not put into use, then it is no good. In a particular sense, the way forward is simple for the Igbos, for any other people. Simply put, the way forward is by minimizing your negatives and maximizing your positives. The question is, can they be identified and accepted as realities and get worked upon? I'll just address our negatives and then highlight our positives and conclude with it. Overcoming our drawbacks. The main drawback of the Igbos, as them and others know, is disunity and lack of compromise. Disunity and lack of compromise. It is not that this malady is peculiar to the Igbos or non-existent among other ethnic groups, but just that it has attained somewhat of a malignant status among the Igbos. I know I'm a physician, and the word malignant is something that has gotten out of hand, like a cancer. That inability to reach an internal compromise and present an outward common front has left them bereft of any significant accomplishment in the last half of a century, in addition to making them losers and losers. In Biafra, Igbos were divided between the sovereignty at all cost group and those that favored some kind of compromise with Nigeria in the face of increasing insurmountable challenges. The division was never breached, and Igbos suffered an unnecessary and preventable defeat that still haunts them to this day. It is noteworthy that at some point during the war, Nigerians, faced with several failed final offensives by Gowon, were divided on whether the war was worth continuing. But when Gowon appealed for more time and patience, they closed ranks behind him, and before they knew it, victory was theirs. There is virtue in give and take among brothers and sisters, and its absence among Igbos is an impediment that must be overcome if any move forward can be attained. Also, shortly after the Civil War, the Igbos were faced with the issue of creation of more states. And like other ethnic groups, there were understandable fears and concerns about the status of the properties and relationships between the old and new states. Other ethnic groups and regions got together, discussed their fears and their concerns, and went for new states. But Igbos, unable to close ranks and resolve their issues, stayed as daggers drawn between the pro and the anti-state creation. In the end, we ended up with the least number of states. Whereas we would have had 7 states in the southeast, we now have 5. Thanks to our disunity and inability to close ranks. Now that states and local governments are the parameters of resource distribution, Igbos have lost money in trillions of naira as a result of states they deprive themselves. Furthermore, in the run-up to the 2003 elections, Igbos once more were divided between the Obasanjo for re-election camp and the Igbo as president camp. This was complicated by the presence of about 7 Igbo presidential candidates because without an internal compromise, no one agreed to step down for the other. At the end of the day, it was a huge failure and a ridicule for the Igbos. Other examples of disunity and disarray abound, including traditional institutions within and outside Igbo land. But for time and brevity, I will let these above examples suffice. Harnessing our strengths. We've taught our negatives. You can't deny, like the bishop said, if you have sin and you deny it, you are not in good time with God. So what are our strengths? To counter this malady, Igbos have tried to evolve some kind of central leadership, like the Ohaneze at home and the World Igbo Congress in the diaspora. While these are commendable steps in the right direction, much work still needs to be done to overcome Igbo disunity and centrifugality. The good news, however, is that notwithstanding the above problems, the Igbos have a lot working in their favor, which they can harness for their advancement. In his 1983 book, The Problem with Nigeria, Professor Chinua Achebe noted 2 qualities of the Igbos that have worked particularly well for them in their quest for advancement. Namely, what is called a fantastic burst of energy and also self-confidence. Professor Achebe in his book noted that the Yorubas, for example, had a huge historical and geographical head start over the Igbos, especially in education and commerce. Whereas Yorubas were already lawyers and doctors by the late 1800s, and Lagos was a teeming, vibrant commercial nerve center, most Igbo areas were yet to come in contact with missionaries, talk less of going to school. But with what Achebe described as a fantastic burst of energy, these educational and commercial disadvantages were wiped out by the Igbos in the 20 years between 1930 and 1950. A lot of Igbo communities tasked, levied, and deprived themselves to provide education and skill to their illustrious sons and daughters. In my beloved hometown, Amoku, 20 miles southwest of Enugu, adults were levied for many years to enable the town to provide high school and university educations for a number of its citizens. Another example of this burst of energy, which Achebe talked about, another example of this burst of energy in action among the Igbos was at the end of the Civil War, when Nigeria, implementing a banking policy midwifed by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, gave Igbos a pittance of £20 in place of their pre-war banking wealth. This pauperization campaign against the Igbos, coupled with the inefficient and haphazard post-war relief distribution and the subsequent indigenization decree, was meant to subjugate the Igbos and seclude them from being major players in the country's economy and commercial equation. But Igbos reached down one more time for this burst of energy and was able to bring Awolowo's intention to a nullity, becoming major participants in the country's economy after the Civil War. Finally, the 8 years of Obasanjo's presidency tested the Igbo's resolve once more, with both Obasanjo's surreptitious and overt anti-Igbo programs and policies too obvious and too numerous for space here. Again, Igbos employ their fantastic bursts of energy to keep their heads afloat. The question is, do we still have this reservoir of fantastic energy? And are we willing and ready to employ it to again move ourselves forward? Restoration of self-confidence. The second characteristic that has helped the Igbos in their quest for advancement is self-confidence. The deep conviction and self-assuredness that they can accomplish whatever they have set out to do. Obviously, our self-confidence suffered a setback from our defeat in the Civil War. But though it was damaged, it was not destroyed. Meaning that Igbos can rebuild their self-confidence to the pre-war level and even beyond. Hence, instead of complaining or whining as Americans call it, that we have landlocked, that we have no oil, that there is conspiracy to keep us down, Igbos should use that time positively to face up squarely to the challenges facing them. Granted that Igbo marginalization is real, especially during the recent 8 years of Obasanjo, these are challenges that can ultimately be overcome by unity, oneness, and standing strong. With self-confidence, we know that the richest nation on the earth are not those with oil reserves, but those with brain power and belief in themselves. That is why Japan has no oil but gives aid to Nigeria with all her oil. That is why the richest men in the world, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, or Allen, etc., are not oil businessmen that have made their money regardless. Before concluding, it must be stated that the Igbo advancement is not just a matter of providing a Nigerian president of Igbo extraction. That should be a means to an end, not an end in itself. In addition, Igbos must address the declining interest in education amongst its children. The crisis rocking its traditional institutions in Igbo land, Nigeria, and diaspora, and the fragmenting forces facing Igbo maritime institutions both at home and abroad. In conclusion, before I conclude, I want to make a little digression like I did before. Among the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria, the Igbos and the Hausas and the Yorubas, the Igbos have a peculiarity. The Igbos are the only member of the three major ethnic groups confined to Nigeria. The Yorubas are in the southwest, they're in Dahomey, they're in some parts of Togo. The Hausas are in northern Nigeria, they're in northern Cameroon, they're in Niger, they're in Upper Volta. The Igbos are the only ethnic group confined to Nigeria. We're not in Cameroon, we're not in Gabon, we're not in Angola. So whatever becomes of us in Nigeria is our final fate. And this we must take into serious consideration. Again, the Igbos, whether people accept it or not, are one of the most politically accommodating in Nigeria. The Igbos are one of the ethnic groups, or the only ethnic group in Nigeria that has elected somebody that's not one of theirs to rule them. The Igbos are the only ethnic group that have elected a non-Igbo. During the NCNC time, we elected a Yuta, a non-Igbo, as governor in Premier, before crisis rocked in NCNC. But this is a feat that others have not done. The Igbos elected a Fulani who go to all time as mayor in Enugu. This is a political accommodation that is unparalleled among other ethnic groups. And we must make people aware of these things. That we are not clannish as people think. Because if you don't have your facts, people throw fallacies in your face, and you cannot counter them. In conclusion, Igbos must bury their disunity if any meaningful progress can be made. Simultaneously, they must rekindle what Professor Nnaemeka called the fantastic burst of energy, and also rebuild their confidence to the pre-war level. Most importantly, thank God for the bishop that spoke. Most importantly, Igbos must be prayerful. Because at the end of the day, it is the God of heaven that decides who wins and who loses, and who goes up and who goes down. With that, they will be able to discern what the Bible calls the times and the seasons, to enable them to timely evaluate and exploit the diverse miscellaneous opportunities that will come their way. Here in the United States, there is a pharmaceutical company that markets one of its products with the slogan, "When the time is right, will you be ready?" You do not need to know the pharmaceutical company or the product it so markets. For the purposes of this presentation. But the slogan is indispensable to the Igbo quest to move forward. So I'll end this piece with a similar question. When the opportunities we have been waiting for knock on our door, will we as Igbos be able to decide